In today's session, we will look critically at the circulating disbursement timetable as seen since yesterday in the grant ecosystem. And we will look again at the controversial delegate to Switzerland and other countries to meet the IMF, which has been lingering in the grant ecosystem for the past few weeks till yesterday. And finally, we'll look at the date fixed for disbursement, which again is generating controversy across the WhatsApps and the Telegram groups. Let's look at the first concern, which is the ongoing controversy surrounding the circulating disbursement timetable. We have seen a timetable where some grants like the CBN slot, the Pioneer, the Palliative, and other grants is captured there to commence this July, while the second phase holds grant handlers like the UAAG, St. Rita, Supreme, and other grants in that hierarchy. But the fact surrounding this is that there is difference between projects and cash disbursement. All cash disbursement is to commence this July. There's no segmentation of CBN slots, the UAG disbursing in separate months, other than cash disbursement commence in July. Whether it is the UAAG, AGPGN, St. Rita, Supreme, or you can name them. If you are approved to disburse, if your organization is approved to disburse funds to the masses, disbursement is flagged up the same time, the same month. The only difference is that all the funds will not be disbursed on the same day. So there will be segmentation in the weeks. There's no such thing like disbursing in phases of months and over the year. Therefore, discountenance that disbursement timetable as it's not an official timetable for the grant handler. We will publish an official disbursement timetable in this platform. The important factor for everyone to be guided at the moment is that only one grant handler has been approved to disburse the fund, not several grant handlers as is mentioned in that timetable. Before we go into other points, let's quickly address them this week versus next week factor. There are some comments on this channel holding that we have been giving dates that doesn't come to pass. This is the same factor that is making majority of the grant handler not to come out and give updates anymore. But yes, most of the grant handler don't want to give you a date, even when they are being given a date for disbursement to kick off. Because if disbursement doesn't kick off in that stipulated date, the masses will accuse the grant handlers of not living up to their words. Whereas the reason for disbursement not happening as scheduled is because of unforeseen emergencies. And that is why we are seizing this moment to apologize to our grant subscribers on this platform and our subscribers on Home Julibra TV who might have been disappointed by the date we give here. It's not by our making, but we feel that it is important to come and update you what is happening in the inner room instead of leaving you to wait indefinitely. Imagine if we shut down this channel just like the UAAG shut down communication since 2023-2024. Imagine if we shut down this channel without giving you information of the progresses established so far. Let me seize this moment to inform the masses that this grant ecosystem is not the same one that we were in 2 years or 1 year ago. It's not the same grant ecosystem that we experienced in 2023-2024. In 2025, the whole processes was restarted. New profiling started. Recall the era in this country where the donors were here. And then our delegates traveled to equally meet with the donors when a certain grant handler like the UAAG was out there to disburse the fund. But in 2025, most of these processes were overhauled and a new grant handler approved by the government was selected to oversee disbursement. Therefore, the profiling starts all over again. Therefore, the donor equally return again to the country when the processes for profiling was restarted again. And delegates from Nigeria in the same vein equally travel out to profile themselves and complete some documentational processes, arrangement for disbursement. And that is where you hear Nigerian delegates were out in the country. The donors were here, so delegates were equally expected to be there to complete the process. But these activities are purely administrative. The time you were briefed that delegates travel wasn't actually the time they travel. The information are leaked or filtered out late in the ecosystem. They traveled over a month ago to complete their own profiling processes. But the important thing is that the delegates return to the country. Then we are here facing the new phase of the project of disbursement. Now that the delegates are back to the country and official documentation process completed, when is disbursement going to commence? From feedbacks gotten since yesterday, disbursement is meant to start on the 10th and 11th of July 2025, few days ahead of us. Although there are some information circulating that disbursement is commencing on Monday, all grant subscribers must beware that there is tendency of date shifting even when disbursement is officially scheduled to commence on those dates. Possible factors why disbursement is adjourned is: 1, administrative setbacks, petitions by aggrieved grant handlers against disbursement, logistics, health, greed, and personal interest, plus other factors. For example, at the time where disbursement was set to commence, some certain grant handler petitioned another faction of grant handler that they are not the one that's supposed to disburse the fund, and the government intervened, called for a suspension of disbursement for that feud to be resolved. Another factor is the administrative. At the time in this ecosystem, we were briefed on how machine or computer crashed or break down. That breakdown, although was not supposed to be communicated to the public, are some regular factors that ICT experts are aware do occur. As we are expecting disbursement, data of CEOs in hundreds of thousands are already submitted, and it's humans that are working on streamlining this data. Take, for example, you have submitted your NGO or organizations to UAG, you have submitted same organizations to Theobat, submitted to AGPG, and submitted to Supreme, expecting disbursement from all this. But the policy of the government is every organization or CEO is entitled to receive disbursement just once. So in instances where you have submitted your organizations to over 5 grants handlers, there is already a huge workload of the ICT and disbursement department to screen this data of duplication. How many days can you take to sort out duplicates in over 100,000 data and ensure that when disbursement happens, no CEO misses out or is removed from the list? Therefore, when you see days turning into weeks, these are all factors that may create delay. Sometimes finances. There's a certain time where the facilitators of this disbursement were locked out of their hotel room because they couldn't afford to pay the bills. The longer the delay in disbursement, the more strained and dry the pocket becomes. And that is when sometimes you hear new names of grants popping out, like the senator slots popping out. Those grant facilitators that are constrained of funds manufacture names and use in raising funds to return back to work. Where you hear the senator slots, the IMF slots, the CBN slots. I pray there should be no Zelensky slots, the Putin slots, or Netanyahu slots as we are facing the new week of disbursement. Because when sudden challenges are encountered in the process of disbursing the fund, they have to manufacture whatever strategy they can to bring about disbursement. Those that are asking if those CBN, the IMF, the Pioneer, the Senator slot, or the Hamas slots are real should be aware that these are all subheads that are used in funding the grant to the state it is. So if you have an arrangement with those that are facilitating it and they assure you of disbursement, then so be it. That we can't tell you for sure that those names are true or genuine, because the main grants that we know are no more the grants that are disbursing in the days ahead to the masses. They are purely different organizations approved by the federal government to disburse the fund. But the good news is that irrespective of the grants you have subscribed for in the past, irrespective of the grant handler, there is harmonization of data Again, even as we are expecting disbursement between the 10th and 11th July 2025, let's equally not take off our sight from the fact that disbursement is going to take place in regions or zones in this country. And these zones have coordinators. Beware of this. And there are interests in all this representation, in coordinators representing this zone, which may likely create delay, because assuming disbursement is starting in the southwest, as is speculated, or in the north or southeast, then there are interest groups that are expecting their facilitators to man those zones, those regions, or those states. Disbursement is going to be done state by state. That is the new government policy. Few weeks ago, these data submitted across the 36 states were sorted state by state, and the data assigned to their respective state coordinators. So you have state coordinators, you have regional coordinators, you have national coordinators. And in between this selection, there are grievances, there are resistance and interest, where some of the grants allow which their own representative should be the one manning those states. Sometimes they utilize weeks and days fighting to ensure their own person are the one captured to represent those state zones and regions. Let's pray that as a new date of disbursement is fixed, that structure that has been selected to coordinate disbursement in those regions and states are allowed to maintain without some aggrieved factions coming on to challenge those selections. And we pray that the Spirit of God will enter the soul of these facilitators to allow disbursement to commence without projecting more personal or cabal interest. Let disbursement commence in this country. At this period, it's no more the government that is resisting the policy. Rather, it is interest groups, it is factional interest, grants and last interest, stakeholders' interest that are creating the delay. Responsibility of grant subscribers at the moment is not just to keep criticizing the delay. It's to pray that self and cabal interest should die henceforth. Hence, disbursement can commence. Before we round up this session, take home these facts. The delegates that travel out of the country are finally back. Technically, nothing is going to hold back disbursement because all factors like data sorting were completed, selection of state and regional coordinators were completed, harmonization of grants handlers data were completed, approval from federal government and other financially regulatory institutions were secured. Technically, nothing is holding disbursement henceforth. According to stakeholders' feedback, disbursement is commencing on the 10th and 11th of July 2025. The disbursement timetable circulating in the grant ecosystem is misleading. Grant subscribers are expecting cash disbursement and the project. Cash disbursement is going to be anchored by the non-governmental organizations that is approved by the federal government to disburse the fund to every other grant handler. The question at the moment is not if there is fund to be disbursed. Nobody should have invested millions of naira or set up structures. Nobody should have even petitioned anybody in those courtrooms if there was no money to be disbursed. Nobody throws stone at a barren tree, only a tree with ripening fruit. Therefore, for the fact that we are experiencing petitions and fisticuffs in the grant ecosystem is an indication that there is fund to be disbursed. Now that all conditions and requirements for disbursement to commence has been completed, pray against personal or cabal interest. Pray against petition. Pray against ill health and sickness. Pray against attacks and assassination. Pray against wicked and greedy intent of man not to block disbursement. If you are a beneficiary or a CEO expecting this disbursement, pray against sudden death. Yes, times and again, you see how people suddenly drop down and die. Immediately they experience a sudden financial breakthrough. There are ancestral causes that are vowed to ensure you don't get rich in this life. And when the time for you to become rich comes, they hit you down. Pray against sudden death in the days ahead, because your hour and day of financial breakthrough is finally here. Because when I look at the coast currently, it is purely sunny and green. If you are
All right, I carefully listening to this particular update that the new date of disbursement has been set, and it's a welcome development in the grant ecosystem. I believe you understood and you heard what he said. But the question I want to ask you is this: what do you think? Let's discuss in the comment section because we have to move forward, whether they like it or not. Let's discuss in the comment section. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the updates.